My friends, we have finally made it into the next generation of shonen manga and anime, and I do not say this lightly. Like many of you, I cut my teeth on shonen anime, which led to a lifelong fascination with the medium and Japan as a whole. Over the last 10 years, we have seen a decline in greats. I mean, there's been good shonen, like My Hero, Black Clover, Demon Slayer, Dr. Stone, etc., but I'm talking greats like Dragon Ball, Yu Yu Hakusho, Naruto, you know the ones that I mean, the big ones, the ones that leave ripples throughout time and define the atmosphere of a generation. And yes, we have had Attack on Titan in the 2010s, which while it is technically a shonen, I mean it is one nippy away from being a seinen, and I see it as such. Feel free to fight me on that. However, I think, actually in fact I know, we have finally crossed into a new era with a little series called Jujutsu Kaisen and its creator, Gege Akutami. And this ain't hype, boy, this is real.
Oh my god, it's so real, like.
On the outside, Jujutsu Kaisen looks like another throwaway shonen to be lost in the sea of millions, but given a chance, it firmly stands out loud and proud above the rest of its modern competitors, including the aforementioned hits, all of which I've followed since their launches and read in their entireties. Except My Hero, I'm out on that one. After our Endeavor video, I don't want to play with those kids anymore. Regardless, in a measly 150 or so chapters in a single season of anime, Kaisen has blown past the pack in tone, action, animation, and most importantly, inspiration. Jujutsu Kaisen isn't just another series coasting on the tropes and comfortable expectancies of what we now define as shonen. It is a piece which actively absorbs those tropes, takes bits and pieces from what it needs, and distills it into a story all its own that holds an uncanny familiarity whilst being entirely new at the same time. This is what happens when someone our age, who grew up when we did, who had the same heroes that we did, jumps full force into the world of manga and not only makes a splash, but a fucking tidal wave, wiping out the competition. This is Jujutsu Kaisen. Let's get into it. Hey, hi, Mike here. What's going on? I'm gonna ask that you don't skip through this section for like 20 seconds, all right? Today, I got only one thing to ask you to care about. This channel, Bonsai Pop. It's been nearly 5 months since we last talked about the channel, and for anyone who doesn't know, we do not make our living from YouTube. Bonsai Pop only works because we are a Patreon-driven channel. Our Patreon community is amazing, the best on the internet. It is filled with so many people that I'm happy to call my friends. We do lots of events and try to be exceptionally active and engaged with our community there. So if you want to see the entire second half of the Bonsai Pop experience you've been missing, consider checking the Patreon out. Link in the description. Now let's get on with the video. So funny story, the only reason this video exists is because one of our buddies over at Displate, and no, like I said before, this video is not sponsored, but do feel free to check out our Displate shop. Anyway, they messed up my order for our exclusive Papu plate by Happy3939 and randomly sent me a bunch of plates to make up for it. Amongst Cowboy Bebop and Evangelion, there was a character I didn't recognize. Now, I'm not the kind of guy to put something I don't know about on my wall. I have very limited space in which to accurately represent myself, you see. So Ghost Saibu did a little research and found out that this is one Satoru Gojo from a manga called Jujutsu Kaisen. And I was like, oh yeah, I heard of that shit. It's one of those new anime Crunchyroll is trying to shove up my ass until I watch. So naturally, I hopped on the Shonen Jump app to read it out of spite for our commercial overlords. And I did not stop. Now I'm a busy guy. I got a lot to read, a lot to watch, and even more to do on a daily basis in order to keep this YouTube afloat. I stopped literally everything to keep reading Jujutsu Kaisen. I was completely absorbed. And when it was done, I actually reached out to our Displate guy, Paul, and thanked him for sending me that plate. And his response was, yeah, we know our game. Legit peeps over there. So what's the deal? What makes this series special in any way when we have plenty to keep us occupied? Well, there is a talking panda, aptly named Panda, and I think we all know how I feel about pandas. Leave it in the comments below if you're a real Bonsai Pop viewer. But in all honesty, it is very hard to describe exactly what makes Kaisen stand out like it does, specifically because it simply isn't one thing. Jujutsu Kaisen is a story about curses and those who create and or destroy them. In this world, humans exude cursed energy along with cursed memes and photos like real life. This energy constantly radiates from us in pools and areas where negative emotions are at their highest. For instance, high schools, hospitals, the DMV, Twitter, probably Congress, you get it. When this energy is concentrated over a long period of time, a curse manifests a physical form and generally kills people and wreaks havoc. However, your average Josephine cannot see curses, and knowledge of such things are sequestered to a select few and arguably those in positions of power. High curse energy areas will contain a hidden object in which to absorb the cursed energy from people's negative emotions in order to keep that energy contained, hence they're named cursed objects. Now this is all fine and dandy, but cursed objects aren't invincible, and like my faith in humanity, they too decay over time. If they aren't destroyed and replaced, they become an exceptionally larger hindrance than a simple curse. However, if an already physically manifested curse gets its hand on a cursed object and say, consumes it, it will have its powers magnified substantially. Now this is a pretty decent shonen setup. You have an alternate but realistic modern Earth where there's curses and cursed energy. It plays off of the long-running cultural superstition of Onryo in Japan, literally meaning vengeful spirit. If you've ever seen The Ring or The Grudge or their better originals, Ringu or Juon, you might be familiar with this idea of negative, wrathful, or vengeful energy manifesting into the most horrific imaginable. That is the basic premise of the threat in Jujutsu Kaisen, giving it arguably its most unique aspect, horror. We have not seen a major shonen with straight horror inspiration since Bleach. And sure, we have things like The Promised Neverland, which we no longer speak of on this channel, but that is more psychological thriller than straight horror, you know what I mean? However, the similarities to Bleach aren't going to end there, and that's not a bad thing, regardless of how you feel about Bleach. And that's because mangaka Gege Akutami is actually a huge Tite Kubo fan, and as a Tite Kubo fan myself, it's my belief that Akutami went through a lot of the same things that we all did with Bleach, namely trying to figure out how Kubo could have done it better. The difference is Akutami made it happen and we're all just talking about it. Now when it comes to manga, it's really no question that Kubo-san trumps all when it comes to design, inking, and expression. But I would argue that Akutami is already at a similar level and even beyond in specific facets. Besides Kaisen being a great story so far, it is also visually gorgeous and boasts some of the most expressive characters and well-designed panel layouts of any manga I have ever read. This insane attention to detail and expression and kinetic energy was taken into consideration for the anime adaptation as well, and the animation by MAPPA is only rivaled by that of UFO Table in their adaptation of Demon Slayer. I didn't watch the anime until I had caught up with the manga, and not only is it a faithful adaptation, but the animation really is absolutely incredible. However, the manga is where I started, and because of that, I think it's where people should really have their focus. I have no doubt that there's going to be a second season of Kaisen, and they're already working on the prequel movie, which is fantastic, but to really enjoy a manga and an anime in turn, I think understanding the mangaka, the creator, is very vital. Now here's where things get a little bit weird. Gege Akutami is my age. Okay, actually, I'm a little older than him, but only by a couple months. But the point is, we grew up with the same things happening at the same time. We would have been in the same graduating class. This isn't one of the mythical status pioneers making one of the big three like Oda-san, or a classic savant like Toriyama. Gege is just a dude like me who grew up and watched it all happen at the same time from the same perspective as the majority of us here together right now, except, you know, in actual Japanese with no subtitles. And as someone who was never content with simply consuming entertainment, I feel a strong connection with Gege Akutami and his intentions. Now, where I strove to take all the music I loved and make something new, he instead went with manga, and his biggest inspiration was Yoshihiro Togashi, a man whom you should all be familiar with by now on this channel, the creator of not just Yu Yu Hakusho, but Hunter x Hunter as well. So now that everybody's tents are pitched and the juices are flowing, let's get into how that major inspiration works into this series. As most of us know by now, one of the most unique aspects of Hunter x Hunter specifically is that it is a deconstruction of shonen. It is a critical analysis of the meaning of what shonen is. It subverts your expectations constantly while still carrying a modicum of the core essence of its base material. Yu Yu Hakusho is a generation-defining story with exceptional characters, but a stereotypical power fantasy, no matter how nuanced. With Kaisen, you get that period piece and characterization of Yu Yu Hakusho with the subversion of expectation and masterful power dynamics of Hunter x Hunter, coupled with Akutami's genius in panel design, kinetic action, and expression. However, there's clearly other inspiration in there as well. We've already mentioned the very clear nod to Tite Kubo and Bleach in the design of the curses and other general horror aspects of the plot and setting, but there is also a big piece of Naruto in there as well. Satoru Gojo, besides resembling Kakashi Sensei quite a bit, is what would happen if Kakashi decided to become a bit of a black hat and run amok on his own designs within the ninja world. The sorcerer teams are broken up into squads of 3 or 4, much like the shinobi units in Naruto, allowing this rock, paper, scissors personality dynamic within the core group, which is great for characterization and allowing personalities to play off of each other. Plus, you get added outside influences from the other groups of seniors residing within the greater sorcerer union, if you will. And yes, the people who deal with curses and cursed objects are called Jujutsu sorcerers, but don't get the image of Vivi stuck in your head. This is a very modern take on the concept. But let's bring this all together by actually diving into the series for realsies right now. The manga starts off in an interesting way, assuming you're reading it on Jump at least. It begins with a 4-part prequel, which sets up the world and some of the characters, including Gojo, but it was left out of the anime entirely. Now we know they're turning it into a movie, so I'm not going to spoil it, but let me just say I became very attached to its main character and was absolutely in love with his very Ringu type power. It's an excellent setup for the series and leaves you wondering where the f that guy went when the main story begins, because unlike our main guy in the prequel, who's a bit brooding and emo, the protagonist of Jujutsu Kaisen is a straight up himbo. But don't go running off yet. Gon was also quite the himbo, and we've seen where Hunter x Hunter took him. Yuji Itadori is a super average looking modern kid. He's got the undercut and everything. He's not necessarily normal per se, at least not like a typical slice of life anime protag. He's very strong, he's very fast. Basically, he's super fit, but not necessarily special in any other way. He's introduced as a student who should be doing sports, but instead he's joined the occult club in his high school so he can get home early to take care of his grandfather, who's about to kick the bucket. And shit the bed Oji-chan does. But before he does, he makes sure to leave Itadori with a little bit of trauma. Even if it's only those closest to you, just save the people you can. Just save as many people as you can, even if it's only one. The old man's last words really stick with Itadori and heavily impact his decisions throughout the entire story. The idea of death and how to die, and specifically the right way to die, pervade the narrative constantly. Despite Itadori thinking his gramps was a real hepcat, the old man specifically told his grandkid not to end up like him in the end. All alone. Now, anyone with an analytical mind is going to stew on that shit when your Sofu's lights go out in front of you, you know what I mean? I'm unlucky enough to have had quite a few deaths in my life, family, friends, even teachers. Some deaths were sudden, some were expected, and some were so morosely tragic. I can remember every single second of sitting in the hospital watching the shell of someone I love wait to have the plug pulled. It's surreal. It's always untimely, and you never know what's going to come of it. We often witness people get willy-nilly massacred en masse in anime and games, but Kaisen has a special kind of weight to death, to tragedy, not in the Attack on Titan sense, where all of a sudden your favorite character gets yeeted into oblivion and you cry because you didn't realize how important she was to you all along. No, it's more in the way where protecting lives comes with this desperate kind of struggle. One that brings Itadori to the edge of self-sacrifice constantly. He's like darkness from Konosuba, but sad instead of perfect in every way. So the question is, what makes a Jujutsu sorcerer different from your average person? Well, like I said earlier, humans are constantly leaking cursed energy. A lot of it is on DeviantArt. But think of it like the dregs of negativity. The heaviest, shittiest feelings sink into the places or things associated with that energy over time, manifesting curses. However, those qualified to be Jujutsu sorcerers are able to feel this energy or see the curses when they manifest due to their exceedingly high level of personal cursed energy. In other words, all of these deep, dark, negative Nancy feels are constantly circulating within sorcerers. Think of it like mud in your veins, you know, except it's your energy, so I don't know, like mud in your central nervous system. And this should leave you wondering about how dangerous these people are. I mean, if regular people leak this crap all the time, how much does your average sorcerer leave around, right? The answer is next to none, because it's all bottled up inside. Like, therapy is not going to fix this. I'd love to see the Irish side of the sorcerer world. They must be fantastic. But basically, what you're left with is what could only be called an eclectic legion of deeply flawed individuals with superpowers. The more cursed energy you have, the more powerful you are. It's quite the paradox. But Itadori himself isn't particularly special, at least not at first. The occult club he belonged to really was just simply a checkbox for his schooling. However, they get their hands on a real cursed object accidentally, and then the S hits the F full force, my friend. This is the cursed finger of Ryomen Sukuna, the king of curses, not to be confused with Chadtronic, the cursed king. Even though it's just a finger, it's a cursed object of immense energy, which of course will draw power-hungry curses to it, which in turn will draw Jujutsu sorcerers to do some exorcist shit. And there's Itadori smack right in the middle of it, and right after his Grampy muddled his mind with all this death stuff too. Despite being told to beat it by a real Jujutsu sorcerer, we get our first glimpse of Yuji's suicidal tendencies in episode 1. Insert outdated music reference.
All I wanted was a Pepsi, just one Pepsi, and she would give it to me, just a Pepsi.
Basically, this curse is after the finger and is trying to take out his friends and is causing a whole lot of woe. So in order to protect everyone, Itadori just eats the thing, man. He gobbles that wrinkled, rotting Chinese sausage finger up like a tasty treat, dude. Which in turn leaves him permanently possessed by Sukuna himself. Now, due to some himbo energy or something, Itadori is more or less able to keep Sukuna at bay, which C-3PO calculates being
approximately 3,720 to 1.
Never tell me the odds.
Then we get a dope fight between Itadori-controlled Sukuna and Gojo, who, let me remind you, is the strongest. And of course, this entire affair leaves the Jujutsu sorcerers in a bind. On one hand, they are lawfully required to exorcise the curse, to get rid of the cursed object, to destroy the finger, and the only way to do that now that Sukuna has fused with Itadori is to kill Itadori. On the other hand, the kid's ability to keep Sukuna on lock makes him the first possible vessel for the King of Curses in over 1,000 years. So Gojo Sensei gives Itadori a choice: die now, or help find and swallow all 20 fingers of Sukuna and then die. Either way, he's going to be executed so they can exorcise Sukuna, so it's going to be a pretty obvious choice. Why die now when you can die later, yeah? Gives you more time to do it right, which seems to be Itadori's other goal: a proper death. But spoiler alert, Jujutsu sorcerers often don't get to decide the time and place of their deaths. It's often gruesome and leaves the sorcerer with a massive amount of regret right before they pass away. And episode 5 shows this moment in real time. In this episode, Itadori is quite literally on the edge of death. His hand has been completely sliced off, the fingers on his other hand are burnt down to the knuckle, and in his last moments breaks down crying with regret and fear. Honestly, not what you would necessarily expect from your main protagonist. He lets Sukuna out, and while controlling Itadori's body, Sukuna literally rips out their shared heart, dooming Itadori to die. This episode was a culmination of kind of what to expect from the show. Plot armor, non-existent. People get hurt, people die. Our main trio are not always going to save the day. Sometimes they're going to make it out by the skin of their teeth. And who knows, in the future, maybe they won't make it out at all. This world wasn't made to be fixed because I don't think it can be fixed. Curses are a problem humanity creates simply by existing, and the world doesn't magically fall into place for the people trying to fix it. It is in some ways an insurmountable obstacle that Jujutsu sorcerers are kinda hopelessly outmatched to fix. But look, the series isn't all sad and creepy like some troupe of My Chemical Romance backup dancers. It's funny. Sometimes it's hilarious, with reaction shots bordering on like overpowered hero or Konosuba levels. It's touching. And even though I've been calling Itadori a himbo this whole time, he really does have way more depth of character than you would ever expect, especially for someone with that haircut. I mean, everybody in the show does. Again, it is very much like Yu Yu Hakusho meets Naruto. There is a well-defined central cast with excellent chemistry. However, there is also a much larger cast on the outside that adds to that and works to continue to develop the core characters as well as themselves. Add this to the fact that even being included in this story requires you to be a deeply flawed individual who has to learn how to control and harness the worst worst aspect of yourself in order to protect not only your life but the lives of others, and you have a virtual planter for excellent characters as well as villains. Because naturally, curse is gonna curse, so if curse, you gotta have your fair share of simple but major threats from this subsection of evil. However, keep in mind exactly what a curse is. It's essentially a wish for harm to come to someone or something. The negativity implied in that simple noun isn't to be understated. It takes a great deal of anger or resentment for someone to come to the point of cursing another person, wishing for harm or death upon them. However, one could assume the concept of a curse is kind of part of human nature. For as long as people have existed, there have existed curses, documented or otherwise, from the ancient Egyptians to the Native Americans. We curse our enemies, we curse our misfortunes, we curse natural disasters. It is a very real and core flaw of the human condition. Jujutsu sorcerers, therefore, are naturally people who must hold a substantial amount of rage or regret to the point where they can take these dark wishes and make them come literally into fruition. From the metaphorically and for real untouchable Gojo to the voodoo-wielding Kugisaki, we not only see cultural representation of various types of curses, but why and how those curses are generated by their specific users. For instance, every curse's ability represents the fear which they manifest. Of the primary villains, there's 3 elemental curses representing earth, forests, and oceans, and then there is the main baddie, more or less kind of, named Mahito, who represents humanity's hatred and fear towards itself. He's kind of like a homunculus. He's all stitched up together. He's creepy. He is humans' fear and hatred of each other. And I don't know if you turned on the news in the last 2,000 some odd years, but there's a lot of that fear and hatred going around, my friends. In a way, Jujutsu Kaisen is a real no bullshit mirror. We fear natural disasters, fires, tsunamis, floods, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions. In Jujutsu Kaisen, those fears manifested into powerful and completely sentient curses. And we fear other people. Humans hate other humans. They get jealous, angry, upset, frightened, and those emotions manifested into a curse that can reshape the body and soul of anyone he touches. And again, he's real messed up looking, so it's like, you know, his insides and his outsides, it's all the same. What he can do and what he is twisted. Now, one of the things that was most important to Gege Akutami when he was creating this series was the idea of it being a morally gray area. It was something that he saw in Hunter x Hunter, and it's something that he wanted to readapt into his own story. Now, what I mean by that is that nobody in Jujutsu Kaisen is necessarily the good guy or the bad guy. It's all about how you look at it. These elemental curses exist because of the way that human beings have treated the earth. They want to get rid of humans because humans are a problem. The Jujutsu sorcerers want to protect humans and kind of keep things going status quo. And then you have some people that want to get rid of all the humans for a different reason. I'm not going to get into that because I don't want to spoil anything. The point is that you can see the sense being made in everybody's eyes. And on top of it, in some ways, Jujutsu Kaisen is humanity fighting a losing battle against itself. Obviously, we cannot stop negativity as a part of our nature. We can only keep it at bay and learn to control our own emotions, yet those who fight off these curses are bottling up the most negativity inside them, therefore making them mentally worse off than those who can let it out. Basically, you know, normal people. In some ways, it's a helpless struggle without any real hope of ending, which kind of puts the entire storyline of exorcising Sukuna into context. While it's important to get rid of the King of Curses, how does it really change anything? Or is it just one blip in the never-ending arc of growing curses? Of course, Sukuna is the real deal, end all of baddies, trapped within Itadori's body. He is an utterly overconfident asshat and an absolute wild card in the story. He's certainly not on the Jujutsu sorcerer's side, but he has no problem killing curses who annoy him either. He's only on his own side, and that makes him more dangerous than anyone else, except maybe Gojo, but we'll see where that goes. Sukuna is also based on an actual figure in Japanese mythology with the same name. He is a demonic specter with 4 arms, as well as 2 pairs of legs and 2 faces, hence where the 20 fingers comes from. He's also said to represent twins, brothers, possibly an ancient emperor's sons, and to be a benefactor of the Hida province. However, he's also seen as a demon of Hida and to be feared. It's very cool the way they inserted that into the series, especially with his unpredictable dualistic nature, the fact that he shares the body of Itadori. You know, he kind of has 2 faces. It's awesome. But Kaisen, again, it isn't about creating a fantasy world for us to get lost in necessarily. And that's what I truly find to be the exception of Jujutsu Kaisen, which is the subtle realism. It is a realistic world where our own fears and our own flaws come to life in the worst way and commit some heinous psychopathic acts, like really dark shit. But I feel that it really showcases what people are going through mentally right now, a lot like Yu Yu Hakusho did back when it first aired. You can sense a conflict in what characters do and the helplessness in the war they fight. And I'm not saying that Jujutsu Kaisen is doomed for a bad ending or that it's a depression fest. That aspect of it is just really cool and I want to highlight it. What I am saying though is that Akutami combined inspiration from two areas, the shonen that we all grew up with and the modern world we live in today, but also gave it an edge with some extra great gore and battles to remember. The end result is something new and distinct, but mixed with a strange nostalgia. I said we've turned the corner into the new era of shonen, and we have. This is our generation's era, where people our age are finally getting to create and get their work out there, with stories that represent the experiences we've had and the lives that we've led. And I think the world of Jujutsu Kaisen really reflects our own, sometimes unfortunately, a time with some unmatched negativity, anger, and fear that runs rampant, and huge existential crises that are simply out of our control yet omnipresent. However, it still manages to eke out hope and humor and friendship amidst all of its dark aspects. And sometimes you gotta just use how fucked up you are as fuel to get things done, to make change and to inspire others. I mean, did anyone who's simply okay ever really make a difference? Basically what I'm trying to say is that Jujutsu Kaisen slaps, baby. Like with me, the promotion art may have not caught your attention, but believe me, you're going to want to give this a go, especially if you're a fan of the classics like we are here at Bonsai Pop, because I really believe wholeheartedly that one day this series is going to be looked back upon fondly as an excellent period piece, just like its inspirations. Watch it, read it, stay weird, and thanks so much for watching. My name is Mike, this is Bonsai Pop. Just wanted to say a special shout out to all of our patrons, our lucky patron of the week, Headphoned Monkey, our Super Saiyan God, Chloe, and you guys, the viewers, the beautiful, the wonderful, the majestic. Make sure please that you check us out on social media. Just Google us, Bonsai Pop, we're gonna pop up on everything. We're streaming Monster Hunter regularly, anything from Generations Ultimate to Monster Hunter Rise over on Twitch. Stick around for some more videos. If this is the kind of thing that you like, subscribe, and if it's not, don't subscribe, please. I don't care. Everybody, you've been great, we've been great, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.